The Everglades of southern Florida is the largest subtropical wilderness still standing in North America. It's home to roughly 160 plant species and about 800 unique types of fauna. But did you know that the Everglades is actually a river? Yeah, the world's slowest moving river, in fact. Clocking in at a whopping 1 meter per hour, it doesn't even appear to be moving, which is why it's primarily referred to as just a marsh and not the river of grass as it was once called. It's a vast and complex tangle of shallow reeds and twisting mangroves large enough to be seen from space. But as human population grows, the Everglades shrink. The Goliath of an ecosystem used to cover 1/3 of Florida in a tremendous 11 million acres of wetlands. It now spans 1.5 million acres, and while that number may still feel too big to conceptualize, we're both gaining and losing ground at an alarming rate. Since as far back as 1881, humans have siphoned water from the Everglades for consumption and urban development. 1 in 3 Floridians depends on its supply for their drinking water. That's about 8 million people, and the state's population is steadily rising. There isn't enough water in the glades to sate human thirst. At this point, it's no surprise that humans are valuing their needs above the welfare of the planet. We see this, well, everywhere. But look at this river. It moves so slowly that we don't even realize it's moving at all. And the more we take from it, the less water there will be to move. Eventually, the whole thing will just stand still. Superhot is a game where your movement dictates the pace and intensity of the experience. It is a 2-hour-long waltz of precise and delicate combat scenarios that shatter like glass if rushed into headstrong. It's a complex turn-based strategy game where only you get to make a move. It is not at all what I expected it to be. Beginning the game, it's as if you're booting up the command prompt of an old MS-DOS computer. You're given superhot.exe by an anonymous user in a chat room, and when you open the file, you're dropped right into combat. Lanky red polygonal figures known by other players in the chat as red guys attack with guns and fists. Except, they can only attack when you do. If you stand still, they can't harm you. They'll just stand there too, trapped in the space between fractions of a second, waiting for you to do something. So, what if you never did? Progressing through the stark white corridors of Superhot, it becomes abundantly clear very quickly that you are not meant to be playing Superhot. The game even tells you to stop playing, forcing you to exit and scolding you violently when you next boot it up. You shouldn't have access to this game or even know it exists. Other players in the chat room won't say its name because it's so hush-hush. There is something fundamentally wrong with playing it, and that's because it may not be a game. Hey there, just a minor spoiler warning for you. I won't be discussing anything too big, but I have to put this here regardless. Most of the Superhot discussion is based in conceptual stuff anyway, not the game's narrative. You end up in a room free from red guys. The screen shouts aggressively as you walk through halls and descend a staircase, insisting that you, the player, know the way. You find yourself in the game, sitting at your desk, playing Superhot, and you're forced to attack yourself to end the play session and wake up from this dream. But there's more. You later learn that you can swap bodies with any of the red guys you encounter, allowing your previous persona to die, assuming total control of another. The idea of stealing another person's physical form is haunting in itself, but what about the you that was attacked at the computer earlier? What happens to all of the yous that are abandoned? Every minute I play Superhot feels like a simulation, like I'm being tested or watched or dissected by the game itself. It's surreal, but the game simultaneously feels so grounded that it's like I'm actually at that desk watching myself on an endless loop. I feel physically immersed while playing, like I'm really there. Like swapping between bodies really means becoming someone else. The whole thing makes the game feel so alive. Like it has its own consciousness and a power I can't understand. And it grants me this power on loan. The power of forethought. The ability to look ahead at what's to come and plan accordingly. Something I think we all wish we had in our lives. But not once did I ever feel powerful while playing Superhot. The game never really relinquishes its faculty over you or your experience. It holds you close and only shares what it wants to, never afraid to put you in your place. So how much good does this forethought really bring us? From its equally mindful yet mindless combat to the backbone of its philosophy, Superhot is also a game of repetition. The player is forced to repeat this mantra back to the system over and over. Mind is software, body is disposable, the system will set me free. While the concepts of disposability and human as hard drive are clearly illustrated in Superhot's narrative, there lie inherent contradictions in this quote, which are by all means intentional, I think. Where is the player's freedom if they're under constant control of the game? How disposable is the body really if we all walk away from the screen relatively unscathed and more or less the same? If you have to be brainwashed into thinking your mind is a hard drive, then how much can you really retain? These lines repeated by Superhot's aggressive AI are reminiscent of a quote from the first pages of George Orwell's 1984. The Ministry of Truth was startlingly different from any other object in sight. It was an enormous pyramidal structure of glittering white concrete, soaring up terrace after terrace, 300 meters into the air. From where Winston stood, it was just possible to read, picked out on its white face and elegant lettering, the three slogans of the party. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. The Orwellian term doublethink is defined as the capacity to hold two conflicting ideas in one's mind simultaneously. Contradictions like war is peace are used by the dominant political party to confuse and control the citizens of the dystopic Oceania, effectively brainwashing them so the party can maintain power. Politicians steal the autonomy of their citizens by fostering an environment of fear and uncertainty. So even if something doesn't make sense, everyone will think it does, because their existence is fueled by propaganda and lies. Without even realizing it, they've forfeited mastery over themselves. They are dogs in a kennel. The meta-narrative present in both Superhot and 1984 is one of the loss of control and the cataclysm that follows. Doublethink is everywhere because we need contradictions to break through the illusion and reveal the structure behind the skin of our world. Now, you might have realized that I haven't really talked about the gameplay at all. And it's not because I don't have anything to say about it, but because it does something that's a little harder to describe. In fact, it gave me a feeling of control I've been searching for my entire life. Well, almost. Quick aside to say that Superhot has a VR version as well. I barely managed to play the normal game and I still got lost in the sauce, so I can't even imagine what this would be like in virtual reality. Anyway, Superhot does an incredible job of stripping the player of control while also giving it to them in full measure, and this acute level of spatial awareness got me thinking, does the world revolve around me, or is my world one in which I bring everything else to life? And to simplify that question further, does my movement allow other things to move autonomously or in relation to me? So which is it? I think the answer is sort of both. On the one hand, the red guys move towards the player and attack when in proximity, and this is all they do. They're granted autonomy through your actions and choose to attack. Or, on the other hand, the red guys are linked inextricably to the player. Their movement is tied to your movement, and when you move in any direction, they inch closer. They're granted movement through your actions, like void given form. Whatever it may be, Superhot's AI relies on the player's choices to progress the state of the game for everyone. There's a moment in the seamless and seemingly endless flow of the chat room where the players discuss how they sometimes see other humans in their game. The idea that some of those red guys could be other people trying to beat the same level. And it would make sense. Just as you attack them, they're always coming towards you, always attacking when they can, never doing anything else. Of course these red guys aren't actually other players, but Superhot has already blurred the line between player and game enough. The fact remains that you use their bodies as your own. You use their bodies to see yourself. And when the player asks the system, "Why do my enemies shatter when I kill them?" the game responds, "Why do you assume they are enemies?" Huh. Now, I didn't choose to talk about Superhot today because I think it's the most innovative example of meta-narrative in video games. Seriously, there are plenty of others. But it keeps pulling me back, and I've got this question on my mind. How much control does the player really have? We've sort of been discussing this the whole time, but I want to think about it a little differently. The red guys can only move when the player moves, and they attack when close. So hypothetically, the player has the ability to freeze the red guys dead in their tracks for an eternity, so long as they never moved, right? Well, not really, because there's a minute passage of time even when the player isn't moving, milliseconds clicking away on a finite clock, and this shouldn't bother me, but it does. The amount of time that ticks by when the player isn't moving is so microscopic that unless there's a bullet centimeters away from your body or impending blunt force trauma threatening to connect with your sharp polygonal face, it hardly affects the gameplay. I spent 28 minutes watching a red guy slowly descending a corridor to see how long it would take for them to shoot me if I didn't move, only to realize that the red guys on the first level don't come at you past the end of the hall. Whoops. Needless to say, not much time is passing, and from a design perspective, it's great that things progress just a little bit. It adds needed pressure and serves as a visual reminder that although you may be safe to make choices in the moment, you always have to keep moving. But despite this slow progression being beneficial to the gameplay, I can't help but have this nagging little desire that it wasn't there. That I can reach perfect stillness in these frozen blips of time and see living things as they are in an infinite moment. At 6 years old, I wanted nothing more than to freeze time exactly where it was. I didn't care when or what was happening or who I was with, I just wished that things would stop, maybe forever. My working theory was that a snap of the fingers would pause everything around me. The whole universe would stand still except for me, and I would be free to exist in that stillness, to breathe it all in, to find solace in the everything and the nothing, to explore the parts of life that can't be seen when you're living them. And when I decided to come back, I'd snap my fingers again, returning like nothing ever happened. I wondered if I could grow old in a fraction of a second, replacing the previous me and appearing to those I knew before as an older version of myself. Still me, but wiser or more intuitive for my time on hold. I tried for years to awaken this latent ability, but of course I never did. I grew older in the present like we all do, and over time my dream became less of an ambition and more of a coping mechanism. I've developed a lot of anxiety over the years, especially in the last few, and it becomes increasingly harder to socialize or even want to leave the house some days. We live in a messy and chaotic world, one where a controlling AI or a malevolent game-turned reality don't sound so far-fetched anymore. These days I find myself snapping not to experience the splendor of the world on pause, but to escape the toxicity and stress of a waking nightmare, to hone that stillness and counteract what becomes too much too fast, all the time. I'm not chasing an infinite beauty so much as I'm running away from what I can no longer handle. Snapping my fingers has transformed into a prayer, an invocation of all the strength I can muster to cope with the things I cannot. That got to be a bit much, and I promise to be a little less nihilistic from here on out. But of course I'm not the only one who wishes they could freeze time. Cashback is a 2006 film directed by Sean Ellis, and it focuses precisely on this. A dejected art student named Ben who discovers he has the ability to stop everything around him whenever he wants. Ben has been sleepless for weeks after a rough breakup, and he feels he's lost the beauty in his life. But with the world on pause, it becomes very easy to understand the concept of beauty. It's through these moments of stillness that Ben begins to recapture his sense of the beautiful. And I use the male possessive pronoun here with full bravado because, well, Ben undresses the female shoppers in the supermarket where he works in order to draw them as still life models. Frankly, this film is disgusting, misogynistic, and incredibly degrading. Ben's concept of ideal beauty is that trope of the male gaze that the overarching and overused term of artist will never escape from so long as our idiotic, patriarchal society continues to uphold these twisted and sexist values. All of the male figures around Ben are carnal, pig-headed snobs who think of women as nothing more than sex objects. But is Ben really so different? He's a starving art student who dreams of being a painter and even gets his own solo gallery show at the end of the film. A show filled entirely with semi-nude drawings of Sharon, the female coworker that he ends up dating. Just imagine the conversation when she realized that he'd been undressing her non-consensually. I mean, if you really find beauty in the human form, why are you only undressing the female shoppers? And why are you... Sorry, you get the point. But I think beauty means something different for everyone. For Ben, love is wrapped in beauty and hidden away between the seconds of your life. He chooses to share his time-stopping abilities with Sharon to experience the majesty of doubly frozen snow on a quiet street. This scene at the end of the film is my childhood dream played out right before my eyes. There's nothing specific about snow or why Ben wanted to share it with someone he loves. He just finds it inexplicably beautiful. And despite his misogynistic view of the world, he sketches the shoppers and Sharon because he feels like he can really see them in their fullness, something you can only capture in a single suspended moment. I think it's this unmitigated and fleeting feeling that's brought me back to temporal fantasies again and again, no matter how much I change as a person. Humans are obsessed with the passage of time. We share stories about time travel, we play games where we can slow things down, we write whole scripts about time standing still just to pretend we have any say in the matter. Because the thought of time getting away from us is scary. That seeming lack of control over the flow of our lives can quickly turn to existential dread if wallowed in for too long. I know I've been there more times than I can count. We all want to feel like we command time because the alternative is to slave to it, and to stop it would be the ultimate form of control and catharsis over the sentimentality I think we all linger in. Oh, and come on, don't try and convince me otherwise. You can't sit there and tell me you've never wondered what the Earth would look like if every ocean was frozen in place, or that you haven't pondered the soft burn of residual heat from a massive flame glowing on your cheeks as you rest before its motionless wisps of orange, or that you've never wanted to stand in the eye of a hurricane and look up through the dense layers of graying, decaying matter to see the clear sky above you. It's true that we all have different fantasies, but I think humans on the whole are a far more sentimental species than they'd like to admit. I mean, just look at how long I've been going on for. This is sometimes to our benefit and others to our looming detriment. It's this desire for control, the holy grail of peerless autonomy that keeps us going in a million different directions every day. But the inverse effect of our longing for stillness is the inability to process the passage of time in a meaningful way. My irksome little complaint about Superhot's time freeze not really being frozen is exactly this. I'm looking for a specific sensation, a paradigm of void that I can't find anywhere, and instead of appreciating the wonderful things about this weird little game, I'm trapped between seconds. Because even if I achieved absolute stillness, what would I do with it? Superhot, for all intents and purposes, is a game that moves at the rate at which the player thinks. The world waits for you to decide what you'll do next. Because you can't move without the movement of everything else, you are both in control and completely stripped of it. This made me realize just how ridiculous my lifelong desire has been. I can't stop time, and given further consideration, I don't think I'd want to. Tangible or digital or virtual reality, it doesn't matter. It may not be in our power to do so, but for a moment, let's all just... There are so many important moments that we take for granted because we're moving too fast to see them. Siddhartha, a Buddha depicted in Hermann Hesse's book of the same title, leaves his simple life in the woods to become a merchant. His only skills are to think, fast, and wait. But with this modest expertise, he's able to build status, notoriety, wealth, only for it to all come crumbling around him when Siddhartha realizes that he's squandered his own potential by exploiting himself for power. Eventually, he's renewed by returning to his core tenets of thinking, fasting, and waiting, and by listening to a river. Just an ordinary river. One that's lost its name. The river teaches him that there is no time. Past, present, and future are lost in its slow, infinite flow, not so different from the Everglades. The ability to think, call it mindfulness or Zen or being present, there are plenty of names for it. It's part of what makes us human. And whether I've gone on too long about time on pause doesn't matter, because humans keep going either way. People are constantly searching for ways to extend and prolong and control, cryonics being an on-again, off-again pseudo-solution. I mean, just look at what happened to Faye. Yeesh. But no matter how much we seek to preserve time and our bodies, we're left with the same old life and the same old death at the end of it all. Try or not, we're always reaching for a point of observable stillness. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking, subscribing, and commenting below. See ya!